Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Across the Stages podcast, brought to you by AbsoluteMotorsport.com and the Alloy TV. I'm James Casey, and joining me today is Josh Sittill. What we're going to be doing is talking through the Autosport launch of WRC and the news that came from that. We'll be reviewing the Dakar Rally, and then we'll be spending most of the episode talking about the upcoming Monte-Carlo Rally. So getting straight on to the Autosport launch, and this was of course an event where they launched all four cars all at once, which was very good to see. A good opportunity then for fans who were visiting the Autosport show to see the cars. But the most interesting thing was a lot of driver announcements that came out of it. And the first bit of news we had was Mads Osberg, who on the day of the show was told that he's going to be doing Rally Sweden in a Citroën C3 with the factory team as well as the third driver. A bit of a surprise move, this one. Not really seen coming by anyone. And yeah, just do you think that this is possibly something more longer term, Josh, or just for that one rally, do you think?
I'd hope it's for more rounds this year, but we got Otsberg saying that he's going to be keeping his Fiesta, just in case the Citroen deal is a one-off. But I think from both sides, really, of course, they're going to be wanting more rounds. It's interesting actually that Chris Meek criticised Citroen for benching Breen in favour of Loeb and not having a strong kind of permanent third driver. And now they've gone and kind of brought back, of course, Mats Osberg, who left the team, and was it at the end of 2015 when they said they were going to have that gap year. So a bit of an interesting move from Citroen and timing with that Meek comment. But yeah, I think it's great for all parties involved, and hopefully not just a one-off, because I think he's going to have a fair bit of success, I think.
I know that's an interesting point. Yeah, they said about the he's not necessarily going to be selling his Fiesta anymore. I said in the last episode that they put it up for sale, and I think they are keeping it up for sale, but they're not actually sure whether they are going to get rid of it
Yeah.
because they are going to keep that now as a backup plan. So hopefully we'll see Osberg not having to use the Fiesta again, because I would like to see him, I think, in a factory car. Really, you've just got all the toys to play with then, and it really gives you the best opportunity. I think last year it was always going to be really tough for him in that private entry, so hopefully he can prove himself. A strong event for him is Sweden, so we will see how he goes there. The second bit of news was Timo Sundinen has finally been confirmed in the third M Sport seat. Not for all of the rallies though. It will be 8 rallies, which is a little bit more than was originally planned, but it's 8 rallies for Sundinen. Just general thoughts on how this works out for the team and for Sundinen himself, Josh.
I think it's going to be really positive, because when we got this kind of initial announcement from M Sport that obviously OJ and Evans were going to be in the kind of main 2 cars and they were going to kind of rent out this third car, I kind of had images of kind of, swapping between pay drivers and drivers not with the biggest amount of talent really. Every round we're going to get a different driver in. But basically we've got pretty much a semi-permanent driver in Sundinen, and then we've got, Bouvier, and then, even possibly Sundinen could have even more than 8 rounds, the team have said. They're pretty much open to that, and I think he's going to do a really stellar job in that car. We saw a bit of a kind of glimpse from him last year of what he could do, and I think just kind of probably more of the same for this year. So it's certainly going to kind of lessen that disadvantage, I guess you could argue, that M Sport have. We're kind of rotating out that third car, but I think compared to other motorsport, in rallying, I don't think it's so much of a disadvantage. You can kind of get your event specialists in a little bit like we talked about in the last episode. So yeah, I think it's a very good thing, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what Sundinen can do, because there is an awful lot of potential there. So I really do hope it's even more than 8 rounds.
Yeah, and there's so as we said, there's Bouffier now fully confirmed for Monte and also for Corsica, which is something I hadn't seen about. I'd only heard about Monte, and then Sundinen for 8, and then there's those 3 rounds where I think that will depend on Sundinen's performance to see whether they give him those extra 3 events. Still nothing confirmed on that front. I would personally, I think Sundinen probably will end up getting more than 8, to be honest, if he can do what he did last year, if he can put in those same kind of performances that he did in those 2 events, Poland and Finland last year in the WRC car. I really don't see any reason why you'd stop at 8. So yeah, I think that's a good move for both sides. So then we had Sordo and Padden, which this wasn't really a surprise to be honest, but they had their events confirmed, the events that they're going to be doing. I'm not sure if this is a completely hard and fast confirmation, or whether it could change depending on if one driver starts doing really well. But let's just get this here. We've got Sordo doing Monte, Mexico, France, Argentina, Portugal, Germany and Spain. And then Padden will do Sweden, Portugal, Italy, Finland, Turkey, Wales and Australia. Portugal, they'll have 4 cars, so they'll be doing 7 events each. Not really any surprises there, are there?
No, not really, but it's going to be great to see them running 4 cars as well in Portugal, and it'd be great to see them, possibly doing it somewhere else as well. But we have to keep an eye on that one. I think great for Sordo, I think in particular, because he's very much in a kind of event specialist. He can do the events he wants, and he can really get that advantage of road position. We've been low down in the championship, and really push for podiums and wins, and get the big results which he failed to get last year, which of course kind of led to this position. I think Hayden Padden's in a lot kind of more difficult position, because of course he's someone who I think really wants to of course go for the title, get a proper manufacturer seat, but I think it's a fair thing to do. Both the team principal said they're running 4 cars in Portugal just to kind of make it fair for both drivers, and then they each get 7 events. So yeah, good bit of fair play there from Hyundai. And
I definitely agree that this works out probably better for Sordo, someone who, to be honest, I don't think really has a chance at a championship in the rest of his career. He's been around for a long time. Padden, I think, is the one who misses out more here, obviously trying to grow his career. But as you say, it's a fair arrangement from last season. You can't expect them to turn down the chance to have Andreas Mikkelsen to give them a full-time seat. So that's definitely a fair arrangement, I think. And then the final bit of news, this isn't actually related to the sporting side, but WRC Plus have made a very exciting announcement that they're going to have every single stage live next year, which is something that I was shocked by. I sort of expected them to increase their programme of live stages with the popularity that they gained in 2017. But yeah, such a big effort, isn't it, to get 25 hours of coverage they're going to go with live over a rally.
Yeah, that's pretty insane, isn't it? I mean, I think it's 95 quid, I think, for the full year, which when you break it down, it's about, what, 7 quid, 7.50, whatever. So really per month. So it's I think, very good value for what you get. Like you said, 25 hours of live coverage. You've got the full highlights, onboards, the maps and that, obviously all the timings and radio and that. So that's, I think, a really massive positive step for WRC. I kind of, talked to a number of people about, why weren't they subscribing to the kind of old system, and the main drawback was for them was just because there wasn't enough kind of live content. But now, you've got no excuse to not watch a stage of a rally now, because, all of them are live, I think, for a fairly reasonable fee, and it's going to be really great, I think, for both the casual and the hardcore fans as well. So, yeah, a really positive step, and I think a nice kind of a gauntlet throwdown, really, compared to the rest of the motorsport. They are, one of the leaders, I think, in this. MotoGP, of course, have got something very good as well, but, the likes of F1, I think, lagging behind, and this is a really good example of how to do it properly.
Yeah, and yeah, they had, I think it was 3 stages live before, which was it's not really much more than what you can find on the TV with existing.
Well, they weren't good stages either, were they? They were usually the kind of super specials, a bit Mickey Mouse stages, and then there was always one good stage, but then that was free on Red Bull TV anyway. So I'm very happy about this.
Yeah, I think it's a good move, and something I'm definitely going to look into, but I don't want it to take over my life, which is a big possibility.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about now. I've already signed up. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes, but that's pretty much most of my weekend sorted now.
Guys, so that covers all of the news from the launch. So now we're going to move on to the Dakar, which finished yesterday, and correctly predicted by Josh that Carlos Sainz Sr. would win. In the end, it was a reasonably comfortable victory. He led from just past the halfway stage when Stefan Peter Hansel ran into some troubles. And then he just controlled his lead from there. But a fantastic victory for him. And the last of this Peugeot era, they'll be stepping back going into 2019. So this was the last opportunity. Not sure what this is going to do for drivers, whether they're going to change around teams or just knock it on the head. But a lot of drivers will now have to sort out plans for next year, but obviously that's a long way in the distance. So talking about this year, just some topics here. The Mini, unfortunately, that entered this year, they had their 4x4 cars, which they've had for a few years, and then the brand new buggy, which they just didn't really have a very good time with any of those cars. Was this kind of something that you have to expect at Dakar, or do you think Mini would have hoped for better?
I think definitely hope for better. I mean, they'd have really kind of hoped to kind of take it to Peugeot and Toyota, but I guess it just wasn't to be. You've got to build really tough machines for what is the toughest rally, in rallying. So, it was not a great Dakar for them, but guess that's how it goes. There's always a bit of luck involved as well. A number of incidents that we saw for both the Minis and indeed for the rest of the field as well. Sometimes it just can't be helped. Certain rolls, certain collisions, certain just random moments where your car just breaks down. You can't always help for them, but there is certainly, I think, an element of skill involved in it. And unfortunately, it just wasn't quite ever really going to work for Mini in this particular year.
Yeah, so that meant that really the only people that took the fight to Peugeot were Toyota, who had a very strong event with 3 cars running in the top 5 for pretty much most of the event, I'd say. After the first few days when the Peugeots ran into troubles of Loeb and Deprise. So in the end, it was Alatea who was second, and in third place it was Genial de Villiers. Bernard de Ten Brink unfortunately dropped out of contention on the penultimate day. He might have been on the podium there, but a double podium for those 2 drivers at Toyota, something that they'll be very happy with. But they still haven't won the Dakar. Will that be the aim for next year?
Yeah, well, someone's got to kind of step up, haven't they, and kind of take this mantle off Peugeot. Now they're kind of gone. They've got this kind of vacuum, and it's kind of a case of, which brand is going to kind of step up and take the kind of control of the Dakar. Who's going to be the favourites for next year? And you would probably look at Toyota and say, they are. You also mentioned the drivers as well. So where are they going to go? Where are these top drivers going to, like Loeb, where is he going to go for his kind of big Dakar push? Or is that going to be it, for him? Same with SAINZ as well. Is this going to be his last Dakar? It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and that's something that I think could really sway next year's event, whether these teams, Mini and Toyota, can snap up the really big names. But as we've mentioned, a very atrocious event. There were 43 finishes in the cars category, and some have described this as the toughest event since it moved over from Africa into South America. And a few casualties. Obviously, Loeb didn't make it to the end, and as we said, Despries ended up playing an assistant role at Peugeot. He had problems and then just kept on going in the rally, but not really in a proper form. Then we had Herven in the Mini having problems, lots of Minis having problems, Al Rajhi as well. And unfortunately, we really didn't want this to happen, but Andre Villas-Boas dropped out on, I think it was day 4, very early in the event. Disappointing, but do you think that it was the toughest event, or do you think that maybe it was just drivers making more mistakes and it was just a coincidence, maybe?
I mean, it's just a Dakar, isn't it, really? I think it's just what we kind of come to expect from it. I mean, the Peru stages, they were ridiculous. They were just I think there's just too many incidents, to be honest, but I don't know, maybe it's... Maybe I'm not a true rallying fan if I think they should make it a bit more safe. But, it certainly, was very atrocious, like you said. And we had just some crazy moments. I mean, take, this kind of whole Carlos Sainz, apparently colliding with a buggy. And then it not actually happening, with a quad or whatever. And then it not really happening. And then he got a 10-minute penalty, and then it got rescinded. And then new footage appeared, and it was all, just that's the Dakar. As I mentioned, really, it's just that's what we come to expect.
Yeah, it is crazy stuff, and You can never really predict who's going to win, but well done for predicting the winner on that one. Certainly, that was the first one that I'd followed properly. Certainly something that I'm going to follow.
Yeah,
again.
definitely really enjoyed it. Even with Eurosport's, patchy coverage,
Yeah, I followed it mostly on just the Dakar YouTube channel, not really looking at the full highlights, but it's something that's quite good. Obviously, it's off season for most other every other motorsport, so it's something good to follow. Right, so now we're going to move on to the Monte-Carlo Rally, round 1 of the World Rally Championship, and one that I think is looking reasonably wide open. I think we're going to get a really good insight into the running order, which at the moment isn't quite known. We know whereabouts where people will be, but not exactly. So starting off in WRC, we have 11 entrants, which is a bit disappointing, to be honest. The second year of the new regulations, you would hope that those numbers were starting to go up, but Monte is an event that usually has quite low numbers anyway, with it being the first event. And with it being so challenging as well, a lot of teams don't go into it. But just quickly going through it, we've got Ogier, Evans and Bouffier in the M Sports, Mikkelsen, Neuville and Sordo in the Hyundais, Latvala, Tanak and Lappi in the Toyotas, and then just 2 Citroens of Meek and Breen. As it turns out, Sebastian Loeb, not finishing the Dakar, probably could have actually turned up and done Monte Carlo. So I think Citroen might be a little bit disappointed with that. They might have been able to put him in for that event, one of his strongest ones. But yeah, just a general thought really of who do you think's going to be up there in this event, or is it just too hard to call?
Well, I think if I was kind of running a bookies, the kind of the kind of joint favourites for me would be Neuville and Ogier. They have to be the 2 favourites for this event. Not only were they the kind of best drivers of 2017, the fastest drivers of 2017 with the fastest cars. But also in terms of the event, I think they're both very strong at it. Neuville should have won it last year. Ogier won it last year. He's won it 3 years in a row, something like that. It's ridiculous. He's a master of this event. He knows how to win championships, and I almost kind of feel like the Monte Carlo Rally is almost like a micro, you know what I mean, of the whole championship. Really, it's a real kind of long game, and that's what Ogier is very good at playing. So I'd put those 2 as kind of joint favourites. And then you've probably got Mikkelsen behind, Latvala as well, So, like you said, it's completely wide open, really. We could get, really 4 or 5 drivers probably could possibly win this event, possibly even more. But for me, it's Ogier versus Neuville all year, and that's going to start right here in Monte Carlo.
And a really long event, this one. It's about, in terms of time, I think it's about an hour longer. You're winning time from most of the other events, so it's as you said, a real long game event, and something that can really change in an instant. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Toyota do, because this was an event last year where, although they came second place, Jari-Matti Latvala was over 2 minutes, I think, behind Ogier at the start. So I think we'll really get to see how Toyota have progressed by seeing whether they can challenge a bit more in this first event compared to last season. And then Citroen, I think, I'm not sure what we'll see from them really, but I can't see them winning the event. But I think, to be honest, they're just going to want to put in a decent showing to try and show that the car has improved from last year. I don't see them being contenders really for anything. And
there's pace in the car, isn't there? There's pace in certain aspects, but like you said, the consistency. You said it. I mean, you said it was like it's one of the longest rallies. Like to survive that length of time is going to be tough for both of them. But I think double points finish would be a really good result. If you finish in the points, you're more than likely going to be in the top 5 or top 6.
Yeah, as long as you keep. It was 6 people who made it to the end without problems last year, out of 10 entrants, I think it was. Or no, sorry, it was 11. Breen was in a 2016 car. So yeah, if you get to the end, you've got a very good chance. In terms of weather, I haven't checked the forecast, but I think that it's looking reasonably good. But there is obviously going to be snow around. Let's say there's a lot of snow. who do you think that would advantage more? And who, if it doesn't snow, who would it help?
Probably some of the guys that have more of an outside chance, that if we get a bit of snow, a bit of kind of crazy conditions, a bit of road position might help. Someone like Bouvier, for example, Monty specialist, someone like him, he could really kind of get amongst it, sneak a podium like he did a few years ago, possibly mount a surprise challenge. I really think that pretty much every Monte Carlo rally, we will always get some surprise contenders. So although I've said that Neville and Ogier are the favourites, like you said, if we get some kind of weird weather conditions, or even if we don't, we really could get someone that just kind of pops up out of nowhere and really, takes it to the kind of established favourites and could possibly sneak the win, sneak a podium, or just lead for a little bit and then crash out. That's just that's just Monte Carlo.
Yeah, that's certainly something that could well happen.
Who do you think that would be if there was? Can you kind of call a kind of outsider possibly?
Oh, an outsider. I think I would go with Bouffier actually, possibly, or Evans maybe, because he was certainly very strong for some of the stages last year. We said last episode everything last year was to do with the tyres, but he had a disastrous day one where he was down with the WRC2 drivers. But then it seemed like the tyres worked better on the dry kind of tarmac, and then he showed some really good pace in those. So I think maybe Evans actually. Or Bouffier, as we said, but he's a bit of an unknown quantity. I've never actually personally seen him in a rally. So
well, I mean, yeah, and like he's a bit out of practice as well, obviously with that car.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of we can't really expect another kind of second place. So that's another interesting storyline. Is he going to be on the pace, or is he really just going to be at the back of the WRC guys? We'll have to see. But I mean, look at last year. Ogier won 3 stages and won the rally. So. Outright pace is, not always important. Here it's just kind of staying in it. And like you said, Evans won 3 stages as well, I believe. So he won the same amount of Ogier. So, anything is. Even Lefebvre won a stage last year. So he's not going to be here, is he? But there were quite a few contenders, I think.
I'm sort of surprised they didn't actually give Lefebvre like maybe just this one rally. I know they want to put down to WRC2, but he's not in the R5s. So
yeah, he's good at this event.
He's got a good
rally, he's got a good history at this event. So, like I say, that's a bit of a shame. But Breen didn't get it last year, did he? He was in a 2016 car, so they've given him the current spec for this one, which is good. But again, Loeb as well. So a bit of disappointment really with Citroen. But Meek could still win it.
Yeah, he wasn't doing too badly, was he, Meek, last year before his crash? But
yeah,
I think he ended up crashing once. And I think he crashed on the road stage.
Yes, on the Saturday. Yeah.
You know that you've had a bad rally when you crash on the road stage.
Yeah, I thought it did summarise the whole year, didn't it? But we will. Meek's going to win a rally this year. I think that's almost a fact. He's incredibly quick on his day. That Citroen as well is incredibly quick. So let's see what there's done over the winter. Maybe they're taking a bit of pace off it, but bolstered it up a little bit. Yeah. So that'll be a good test. Monty.
Breen's definitely said that he's more comfortable with it. So we'll see with Citroen. I think that this event could be, as you said, an insight into the rest of the year. I don't expect them to do brilliantly, but maybe if they can do all right, that shows good signs for the rest of the season. And again, weather will affect them quite badly. I think if it snows, they'll probably struggle a bit more. Right, on to WRC2 then. And unfortunately, only 6 entrants for points. There are quite a lot of drivers actually who are R5 cars but aren't entered for WRC points and WRC2. So the people who are entered are Eric Kameli, Timo Sunderland in the M Sports. Then we've got Jan Kopecky in a Skoda Motorsport 2 team. So they won't actually be scoring manufacturer points for their main Skoda Motorsport team, which I don't understand, but we'll see. Then we've got Kevin Ebering, and then 2 other people who, to be honest, I've never really heard of. I don't want to say their names because I'll just get them so badly. But basically, there's one guy in a Peugeot 208 and one guy in a Citroen DS3 who, to be honest, will just hope to get to the end of the event and maybe pick up a podium if the other people drop out. But yeah, from that rather poor, unfortunately, entry list, who do you think is going to be up there?
Well, I think it's got to be a three-way fight between, Cameli, Kopecky, and Suninen. Cameli and Suninen for outright pace, but Kopecky, is ultra consistent, and he's someone who can definitely get to the end of pretty much every rally he enters. So I'd expect Suninen. Cameli's doing the full season. Suninen, we know, is going to be in a WRC car, so Cameli's definitely going to have one eye on the championship, but at the same time, he's going to want to improve himself. So I'm really intrigued by this fight between those two. Kevin Abring as well, of course, former kind of Hyundai Junior, now switched over, of course, running in a Fiesta in a kind of private entry. So he's got a point to prove as well. And then, as you mentioned, we've got the other two as well who just basically got to stick around. And, you never know, could get a WRC2 podium. We'll have to see. But there are also, of course, a few that aren't scoring points as well. We've got Ola Kristin Veiby, Rovan Pera, Sarazan. So it's going to be an interesting fight, isn't it? It's going to be a bit of a weird one because we'll have guys scoring points versus guys who aren't scoring points, but both are going to amalgamate to give, I think, what do you think, a really good fight?
Yeah, I think that's, as you say, it's a shame that they're not in the main fight, because I think that would be a good battle. Then you add in those other two Skoda drivers who aren't, they are in Skodas, but they're in like private, different liveried ones. Yeah, so someone, and Sarazan as well, very good. You would imagine that Monte's done Corsica a number of times and is very strong there. So Monte again would be an event you would think he'd be very strong at. So yeah, that would really open things up. So it's a shame. We do see this quite often. We saw it last year as well, but maybe not quite as this bad. The whole WRC2 not being entered for points thing. It's a bit of a shame. But like you, I think I'm gonna go with Cameli as my prediction for the win. But
I'll go Sunderland. There you go.
Like with WRC, it's quite open and
yes, definitely.
Between those three.
But a good chance for Fiesta, I think, to Ford rather Fiesta. A good chance for Ford to beat Skoda.
Yeah, and really kick off their season and challenge Skoda, who are going to start their main entry with a proper main Skoda Motorsport team. I think in Mexico, I think is when they're going to begin that. So yeah, good chance here for Ford to pick up a good result.
Because he won 3 rallies last year, Ford. So a good chance for them to get one off on Skoda.
They definitely need to improve on if they want to take the fight in championship.
Well, it took them until round 10 to win, so it'd be very good, I think, for them to beat them, and no Mickelson as well to beat. So like you said, it's very open.
Yeah, correctly. Last year they didn't have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Last year we knew who was going to win. So this year, I think it's like you say, very close.
And it will be interesting to see how Rovan Pera does, because we've only seen him on 2 events so far in WRC2, so that'll be something to watch out for to see whether he's really kicking on, how he's doing with the Skoda compared to the Fiesta last year, which he didn't have a great time with in those 2 rallies, but obviously he's very young and it was all new to him, so it's kind of, you can see why. And then just a little bit of other WRC2 news. Gus Greensmith will be doing the rest of the season with M Sport. So obviously Sunderland is doing this event in an R5, but he'll be moving up, as we said, to the main team. So Gus Greensmith will be doing most of the season with the Ford M Sport team. Obviously, all the events that he has to do, I think he's entered for 8 overall, and 7 of those go towards the championship. So something good for him. But yeah, that just about wraps things up. So we've got, in terms of the Monte-Carlo Rally, we've got a good event coming up, I think, and hopefully one that, if you want to, you can see all the stages live. So
and relive as well. If you miss them, you can watch them afterwards in full.
Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah, they're all relived as
That'll be good for Mexico or any other events that happen at 3 a.m. whatever.
Yeah, so I will have to think about that, whether I'm going to do that or whether I'm just going to follow it by watching it on Twitter and just seeing how people are doing at the end of each stage. I'm very tempted to get it. But thank you very much for listening, and next time we'll be reviewing that Monte-Carlo Rally, and like we did today, we'll be looking at WRC and also at the WRC2. And then obviously after that we'll be going to Sweden. So hopefully you watch the Monte Carlo rally and enjoy it. If you don't get WRC Plus, then you can watch a few stage, or you can watch one live stage on Red Bull TV with highlights on there, and there's also coverage on BT Sport as well. They've got a few live stages. They've got the final stage, they've got the power stage as well. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.